Create with Fran Sidney. Hello everyone and welcome to Create. This is Fran Sidney. Today we have an amazing guest all the way from Ontario in Canada. So hello Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited too because today you guys, we're going to dismantle all the myths about vision boards. Some people think, I'm a man, I'm going to switch off because vision boards are all about cutting pretty pictures like Pinterest, and you attach them there and I'm like, no, there is so much science and neuroscience behind doing something real, and also there is a big difference between digital boards and real boards where you are actually handling the material. There's a kinesthetic experience. So what is the neuroscience behind it? What is there behind the photos? How do we create the life with purpose and really dare to declare what we want to be, what we want to become, how we want to feel? And how do we do this? With a filter of a faith supporting you and me as we go forward, because we all believe we have a purpose in life. And with that purpose, when that is clear, we get to the end, we know where we're going. There's a huge difference. So Debbie today will talk to us about this because she knows what are the problems that lead us to fail and what are the strategies that lead us to have success using this vision board. In fact, she even has a vision board academy. So let's jump straight into this and see where do you want to start, Debbie?
Well, you've just given so much there. I love the difference between digital and paper. And I think with the surge of AI and, people really wanting to use ChatGPT for everything, people have said to me, Deb, why don't you create an app? Why don't you just have people speak their vision into existence and, to just use Canva or Pinterest as you spoke about. But my background is with children. So I spent 30 years in childcare as a not-for-profit childcare director. And what we know with children is, we zone out when we're watching a screen. We access a different part of our brain. And when, the saying is, when it's in the hand, it's in the heart. Meaning that when you can actually feel the choice that you make, and my method is called the decision vision. So when you're making choices, not simply by Googling an outcome or by just choosing something on Canva, but rather you're trusting a process. So when you're using paper, you are using a magazine. Now I've made it easy. I have my own magazine. And so that's a compilation of images. So I have made it more simple for people to find images versus having to scour through 10 magazines or go to thrift shops. But even that, I feel like the discovery, the hunt, the adventure of finding the images creates trust. And that already is helping you become aware of choices and of what's showing up. So, you talked about faith. We have, I think, is an advantage as a believer, and that we know that all things are already laid out for us. Like, we just simply have to step into it. So we can trust that, yes, even the images that we need for our vision board will become real for us, that they're going to show up because we know that everything is for our good. And so we get to even trust the process, not just simply the outcome. So I love this idea of paper versus digital.
I was thinking you are so correct, because we are all born with a certain character trait or possibilities, potential, things we like and we don't like. And eventually that becomes our strength. Like, we might be very good with math or with arts or with talking to people. And this goodness that we have, because we're all born with all these cells and these genes and with likes and dislikes passed from the ancestors, all this is ready. It has to become something. But a lot of us could also be intellectual people with like a PhD or master's, but we're still struggling to get from A to B. So we have this amazing dream, but we don't really know how that's going to happen. So if we don't visualize it, how can we put the RAS working in our brain, right? So you got your strategies. How long have you been doing these vision boards special events?
I've been doing this for the last 8 years. And so I felt this, and I thought that I had this, that this was something unique to me. But now that I speak to people, they're like, oh no, I had that inner nudge as well. And the nudge was, and it was like a whisper. And the whisper said to me, Deb, you're meant for something bigger. And so when I was like, bigger, what does that even mean? I started to become restless, and I wanted to see, like, what else could I be doing? I was at really as far as I could go in terms of what I was doing as a Canadian in the childcare system. Like I said, I had multi-site. We served about 450 children. I had a team of about 75 employees, and we were one of the top childcares in my province. And so if I wanted to go higher there, I needed to then go into government, and that didn't really interest me. And what I noticed with my employees was that they really didn't have the sense of why, like, why were they in this career? And also I saw some burnout when they didn't have their why. As you said, they didn't have that GPS, that northern light, that focus to where they wanted to be. And so they would burn out. And so I was doing coaching even within my role as a childcare director, and that led me to then discover vision boards. And without having that destination, you're like a ship that's on the ocean that's just being buffeted by waves, but you don't have a clear direction to a safe harbor, that you're not really sure where you're going. You're going to go somewhere, but you're not going to be heading in the direction of where you really want to be. So it's important to have that vision. But then the vision is big. And so the vision doesn't necessarily carry the how. You don't really know how it's going to happen. And that, again, requires trust. And then you chunk it down into goals. So that's where the strategy comes in. And some people interchange the word vision and goals, but I have them clearly distinct. That the vision, as I said, you don't know the how. You're going to put the big vision on your board. Perhaps it's a lake house. Perhaps you're single right now and you want to have a loving partnership. So you don't know how that's going to happen, but you're going to put that on your board as your vision of this beautiful, loving relationship. And then you're going to break that down into goals. The key, however, is to see yourself in each of those images, in that partnership, in that beautiful, let's say, job, in that beautiful lake home with your family, that you can picture and visualize yourself in there. And then it's about breaking that, as I said, down into smaller steps and feeling the joy as each one of those goals is accomplished. So it's truly about raising your vibration. This is where we get into this idea of energy, about raising your vibration and frequency, that you're like, oh, I reached out to a real estate agent, and I found out, what kind of homes are on the lake near me. And that feels good that you've even got into action, and you're starting to move energy, and you're starting to get into the path towards manifesting what it is that you really desire.
That makes a lot of sense. So do you have 50% men and 50% women attending these vision board workshops?
Mostly I have women. And I think that's maybe my brand as well. My brand is very feminine. And I think that there is a myth around this being a feminine kind of activity, at least in North America. I understand in Australia, most of the vision boarding is done by men. And that makes sense to me, because if you think about corporate and the way that corporate America, corporate Canada operates, there's no huge corporation that doesn't have a vision. And they've laid it out for their board of directors, for their employees. Every big business has a vision. They have a mission statement. They have a plan for their year. They've got goals for their employees, for their finances. So the vision and goal setting language is very masculine in a way, which is interesting that now outside of that with vision boarding, it's become feminine. It's just interesting. I like the yin and yang of it. I like the idea of goals tends to be more masculine energy and vision tends to be more feminine for whatever reason. But they work beautifully together. So to answer your question, I mostly have women. I run, as you said earlier, an academy where I train trainers. I only have 2 certified men out of the just under 60 people that I have certified around the world. So that also speaks to who I attract. But I do also have a vision board experience for couples, where a partner, like a husband and wife, can create one vision board together. And that's another beautiful experience where they can create this life that they desire together. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So, shall we go through the process? How does this actually work? If I want to achieve something and kind of go round and round, and I want to do a vision board, do I have to get a guru to help me? Do I have to do a course? Or can I just start the process at home and then maybe somebody will illuminate my path later?
Well, there is no wrong way to do it. And I've heard people say, I just chose one image and, got really focused on it and it manifested. And so there is no wrong way, but there is a better way. And so because I've studied this, and as you talked about the RAS, the reticular activation system, and when we connect into neuroscience, then we can access the universal laws, we can access understanding energy, we can understand focus. All of those make it where you're going to manifest faster. So that's what my process does, is it supports people to manifest faster. So the way to do it is to, first I would say, carve out space. So my workshop takes 6 hours. And sometimes people, especially corporate, says 6 hours, and I'm like, yeah, it's like, give your employees a full day experience, a full day retreat. This is your most important day of your year. If you think about going to the spa, you would definitely spend an afternoon going to a spa. And what happens when you leave the spa? Within even an hour, the massage you had, the facial you had, that feeling leaves, it evaporates. But the vision board is going to carry you through the next 12 to 18 months. So you definitely want to carve out space for that. Or time, like multiple times. So if you don't have one 6-hour time slot, then set aside time on a weekly basis where you can be very intentional about focusing in on that. So I tend to do it either, as I said, 6 hours consecutively, or if I do a retreat, I'll do it over like an afternoon and then a following morning, or we'll do it for 3 consecutive weeks online where we spend 2 hours each week. Then the other piece is you want to get really clear on what do you want. And that sounds so simple. And yet for women especially, and maybe men as well, but as a parent, when my children say to me, Mom, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, oh, sweetie, I have everything. I don't know what I want. And so what happens though, is I'm shutting down this opportunity for them to gift me. Like when you give a gift to a friend or to your children or to someone that you love, there's this beautiful exchange of energy. And so as a Christian, our Heavenly Father loves to gift his children. And when we don't ask, and we've been given the Lord's Prayer to ask for our daily bread, ask for what we want. And so we get to step into, not as a demanding toddler, like, I'm entitled, but rather as asking for what we want. And so I see the vision board as an act of worship where we get to be as gratitude for this beautiful life that we've been given, that this is what I want. And what my experience has been is that when I get really clear on what I want, what actually shows up is often bigger and better. Of course it is, because it comes from God. And so I only have the vantage point of my current circumstances, my past, but I can't see into the future. But he has past, present, and future all in his vision. And so what he provides for me is often better because it's for my good than I could even have imagined. So to go back to your question, getting clear on what do you want, and then thinking about it in various areas, because sometimes entrepreneurs, and I'm not sure who your audience is, but people that are very ambitious will get really caught up in work. So they want to put money on their board. Now, I actually discourage people from putting images of money on their vision board, because money, for a couple of reasons. One, it has often a negative connotation. We have a feeling about money. But secondly, it's a how. It's not the final vision. It's the passageway through. So I would discourage you from putting money on your board, but rather, what does freedom of money feel like? So keep going back to this idea of what does this feel like? Even if you're wanting to release weight, let's say you're like, I want to be healthier. I want to release 30 pounds. Don't put a weigh scale on your board. Don't put, a picture of a skinny person to remind you. Like, nothing negative or reminder, discipline belongs on your board. It's the beyond that. So once you have released the weight, what does that feel like? Perhaps it's an image of a beach. It doesn't even have to be a person. It's just an image of a beach that you can imagine yourself feeling free, walking hand in hand with your partner, having released the weight and just feeling so comfortable walking in a swimsuit, perhaps. So whatever that is for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I was thinking, and I always say this because people will know, almost 300 episodes. When we look at social media or the news or images in the glossy magazines, this is the vision board that is given to us by the outside world. So you see these skinny women with full of Botox and fillers and huge things in front of their body that they, think they need to be that big. And all these images are bombarding our mind, and they get stored in our memory and then retrieved later when we think we have an image of what we need to be looking like, what we need to have, the house that looks like this, the job that looks like that. Everyone has to be now a remote worker with a laptop working on a wonderful island on a beach. That's the image, but do you actually know the drudge behind? So I think that the vision board is a way to contrast the constant visual harassment we get that is telling us something that didn't come from us. It comes from industry trying to sell something. They're going to make money out of that, and that's why you don't see advertisement of apples, because the farmers don't have the money for advertising, do they? But you see advertising for painkillers, for chemicals of all sorts, because they're gonna make money. So when I say, okay, I want to step away a minute from this image that the world is giving me, and I want to see what is my vision, what is Heavenly Father's vision, what is my potential. That's the way that you create what you want and what you need, which is different from what I want and what I need. It just realizing we are not what the world is telling us. We are something else. We are very special. We are unique, and giving us this grace to know that we deserve to be unique. We do not have to be a clone of everyone else, and because happiness doesn't come from earning 100,000 a month. I see all these courses and coaches. Oh, you can do 6K moms, but the whole point is how you're going to feel, because human beings do not take actions for any other reason, is to step away from pain. We always move from pain to pleasure as much as possible, and to feel that we are going to have a good positive feeling in the end. So it doesn't matter. I want to earn much. Why? Because in the end I'm going to be able to pay the bills easily. And so how is that going to make you feel? I'm going to feel relaxed. I don't have a pressure anymore, but we're going to have another pressure of it. So how is that going to make you feel? So you have to go back down and do the inner chat and see, how do I want to feel? That's correct. So maybe you see, the beach is going to be wonderful. Have you realized you're going to be sweating the whole time on the beach? Maybe you can't even swim. Maybe you hate having the sand under your feet. How is that going to feel? So you have to, and I'm a beach goer. I love the beach. I will be the whole day on the beach. But I'm saying you have to really understand, what is this going to make you feel? Sometimes it's really different. It's a relationship with somebody. So in your vision board, you don't need to put 6K month, having a house on the beach or whatever. Sometimes you need to put better relationship with XYZ, and that will make you happier. Have you ever thought about that as a vision board?
Yeah, so, I've been married now 35 years. And so, thank you. My husband is on my vision board, not him. He's very private, but an image that represents our relationship. Because I wanted to continue to grow. I wanted to continue to deepen and mature. So in the past, on some of my vision boards, I have a picture of a man's hand on a woman's back, and just you can see it's just a picture of the woman's back, a man's hand, so you can tell it's in an embrace, and they look like they're dancing. Like, I love that, like that feel of security and intimacy and beautiful relationship. So I have that represented on my board. Now, somebody else could look at that picture and not have the same feeling, But for me, that's what it conjures up for me. And that's what I want. I want to deepen my relationship with my husband. I don't take it for granted, which is why I continue to have it on my vision board to nurture that relationship. And so I agree with you. It's very individualized. It's like looking at a piece of art. You can have 10 people go into an art museum and come out with 10 different opinions about an exhibit. Hate it, love it, indifferent, I'll never do that again. Like, there's just so many different ways to interpret a piece of art, and the same thing with the image. But the most important thing that I guide people through is to discover, as you said, what it is that they really want, and that they're not influenced by commercialism, by thinking what I should want, or, this is the standard of, as you said, of living. And I also encourage my clients to put a picture of themselves in the center of the board. And that's a very unique Dare to Declare protocol. And the reason I do that, and the other protocol in addition to that, is a picture of themselves in a happy time. Sometimes you can have a beautiful picture of yourself, but the time of life that you were in, let's say you were having marriage problems, or you were very unhappy at work, you were stressed, or whatever that situation was. So, I've had a picture of myself Christmas morning with my dog in my pajamas. It wasn't a glamorous shot, but it was like I was surrounded by my family. I had just prepared this beautiful brunch for them, and I was just relaxing in the chair with my dog. And it was like, I love that picture. And so that energy coming off that picture, that's the anchor for everything else that's on the board. Because the way that I offer a vision board to my clients is that it's a representation of your self-image. And so as a Christian, our self-image is, from our Father. We are made in his image. So knowing that we are heirs of the King, then what does that look like on our board? And some of the area you might want to consider is service, charity, giving back to others. Like, what does that look like that you're going to be giving back? So I encourage my clients to put multiple areas on their board, but that it represent, their self-image.
Wonderful. I love that you have this very clear vision how to do it. Then maybe you have a vision board about a vision board as well, because you're teaching it. So every time you want to achieve something, you have to visualize what you want to achieve. And what we visualize is what we create in the end. So if I think I'm going to go into a situation and fail, I'm not good enough for this, I'm not prepared, this and that, I'm going to go with this kind of aura, like, I don't know if you ever seen a Donald Duck cartoon with Scrooge walking around, and he had literally, Disney was so fun, a little cloud on his head, and it was raining just on him. I thought that really expands on how our way of thinking creates the reality. Sometimes I also say how to avoid that the dog will attack you. Sometimes they having the confidence, self-assurance, they know, okay, I just gonna lay down, I'm gonna be confident, I'm gonna stare him in the eyes, or I'm not gonna stare him in the eye, depending on what the dog is like, and I know I can handle this. But if you are frightened, the dog will know that. He can feel that you're frightened, and he might attack if he's one of those types of dogs. Now, I don't know much about dogs, so I can't discuss this very deeply, but I can really see how you can project your fear, your happiness, your joy, your bubbling thing. And I remember once I was going to start a session, hypnosis session with a client. We came in on Zoom, and as soon as she saw me, she goes, "Oh my gosh, you get so much energy." And I was like, I didn't even say hi. I was like, wow, that's wonderful. So this energy has to go through. So if a person today, as we're now unraveling, going to the end of this, so a person wants to finish the podcast and say, right, I want to do a vision board. So what are some quick tips to actually get this done so they can start today?
Yeah. Well, I want to just go back to something you said too. Your energy introduces you before you even say anything. And that's with everyone. And so, because we know, like, if you have somebody just had a fight, like you walk in a room and there's bad energy, we're like, whoa, right? Nobody's even said anything, but you can just feel it. And so the good energy as well. And that's where this law of attraction, we talk about that as well. We're attracted to positive energy. So I just wanted to validate also what you're just saying, and I love that people can feel that off of you. I can sense that too.
Give us a tip, because you know exactly what worked for you, because you have so many years of experience, and you know what happens. You turn off a finger. That was wonderful. I feel so good. And then you start looking, scrolling online, or picking up the kids from school. Oh, I have to answer to all these emails, and you forget. And I want people to be able to take action. The whole website and podcast, my mission is to get people to create the life that they want by taking the strategy action straight away, not procrastinating, but actually doing it. So your first step of this.
So I love this idea of a power word. And we haven't even talked about that, but that is a really great place to start. If you've never done any visualizing, not ever done a vision board, you're like, oh, this sounds like a lot of work. It sounds complicated. Choose one word for your year. And you can even start, we're into the fourth quarter here. And so you could, choose it for now, for September till next September, and use it as your lens. And it is your identifier to say, I am. So for me, when I was leaving my job, when I gave my notice, my board of directors, I had been doing this work for 2 years already, vision boarding. I decided I was going to step full time into my career with vision boarding. And my word that year was generous. COVID happened. And I was like, oh no, like I just left my job for in-person workshops that I can't do. And so what it also does is it gives you courage. You talked about confidence, but it gave me courage to say, okay, I am generous. That was my word for the year. I am generous. So what would my most generous self do? Well, she would, be patient with her employees. She'd be patient with the health unit when they kept changing all the regulations. And I'm going to have courage to step into what I decided I was going to do. And so I showed up as that best version of me, that generous version of me, and I did. And I did leave that after 6 months. I was able to step full-time into my career, and COVID gave me this opportunity to be global. I would have probably just stayed in my little Ontario, Canada town in my studio doing vision board workshops and not have expanded, certainly not as quickly as I did, because I was now thrust onto a global stage offering vision boards, when then people told me, Deb, nobody in the world's doing them like you. And I was like, really? And that's why I created my academy. So the single word gives you courage, which on the other side of courage, the evidence of risk is confidence. And when you have confidence, it goes back to making more and more courageous choices. So choose a word for your year. I think that's a really great place to start. And then if you want, just give a plug about my website. If you go to my website, my magazine is there. And there is, it's only $19.99, and my course is in the back of it. So there's a 2-hour content. It's worth like $500. It's in the back, a QR code. You can download it. It was professionally videotaped in my studio here in Ontario, Canada. So you feel like you're just part of a workshop. And I walk you through step by step how to create a vision board.
Perfect.
Through my process.
So there is no excuse. No excuse. We can do something today.
There's no excuse, no.
And get started. Whether the goal is to get a degree, to change job, to regain the friendship that you lost, whatever the goal is. So if you're confused about what is the goal that I want, then I think that's a great time to go and look at a coach. And which coach can you trust? And there are hundreds of millions of them, and you have to find that coach. Because sometimes that one chat with a person that doesn't have your bias, doesn't have your emotion, and looks at the situation and helps you to really clarify, what is this about? Why do you want to reach this? And then you're like, oh, I actually do not like this. I want to do something completely different, because how I want to feel is totally different from what I assumed. And it's so easy to be superficial. I think, I always wanted to do this. But why did you want it? Isn't that a big question sometimes? Asking yourself always, why? Why? And eventually you get down there and you see, oh, I've always wanted to stop all this and become a postmaster or whatever. We don't know what it is. And that's the beauty, isn't it, Debbie? We're all different. So I might have a tiny goal. You might have a massive goal that for me is like, why would I do all that? But for me, the tiny goal really makes a difference. It could be to be healthy. just healthier, or it could be just to stop yelling all the time to the little kids. Maybe you have 5 kids and they're bouncing up the wall. Maybe they're super active and you're like, I can't do this. Well, maybe that's the goal. Maybe you want to stop drinking. Whatever, the goal can be anything. And you have to decide it between you, your conscience deep inside, and if you are a believer, a Christian, that's a good time to have inspiration, isn't it?
For sure. And I thought you bring up a really good point. I think your why, when you ask the why, I love doing that as well. I do work one-on-one with clients and we get down to what their purpose is. Now, the purpose, I find that's pretty static in that it may not change, but your vision will continue to move. It's like goalposts that continue to move forward. So even like the vision I had and my goals from 7 years ago are different today. I didn't, even a couple of years ago, I didn't think I was going to write a book. But now I'm working on my own book. This is a goal. I didn't have that goal before. I'm going to be hosting a conference. That wasn't a goal that I had before, but it continues to evolve. And so knowing that you're going to want to create a new vision board, usually 12 to 18 months, and you're going to want to continue to update your goals. I do them monthly, where I continue to look at my vision board, taking a few of the visions off, not working on many, like 3. What are 3 goals? I break them down to work, wellness, and wholehearted. So work, and then like relationships and wellness, mental health, physical health, those 3 areas every month so that you continue, as you said.
And that's what we do as humans. We are not static. We do change from the day we are born. We keep changing, adjusting. I don't really want this. I don't really want that. We become also quite petrified in our position sometimes, so we have to have a little nudge to move. And this growth is also a part. I also have to say, it is good to have a goal, but the journey, it could be quite a thing, right? It could be an experience.
It's the joy. I mean, it's a cliche, joy in the journey, but it's so true, is that as you, I like to think about a road trip. Here in Canada, if we travel anywhere, we're going to be it's going to take us a distance. It's going to take us time. So we got to get in our car, so we plan our destination. We know where we're going. Like tomorrow, for example, I'm going to be traveling to a girlfriend in the United States, about 5-hour drive. And so, I'm imagining already, what it's going to be like meeting with her. But then, I pack my car and I'm already figuring out my podcast I'm going to listen to on the way. I've got my snacks, and so there's joy even in the drive. I'm already enjoying just thinking and planning, going. Like the end destination isn't simply the joy, but it's even the journey
true.
itself.
And you know why? I like that. I don't like to say, it's 5:00 and then, we have a party 6:00. Okay, we'll go. But what if I know 2 weeks ahead? So I can experience the joy of the expectation. In fact, there was some old Latin guy that said, joy is a waiting for the joy and figuring all out in your mind what's going to happen. It's this expectation that creates this high vibration. I was like, they knew that even among the Romans, so here we go. So let's create a joyful journey through a very laser-focused vision board, supported by our faith and belief that we deserve this, we're creative of this is our real thing, we want to do it. And if we have any question, we can go and look up Debbi's website or whatever website you think. I'm not going to have to force you to go to her site, but please have a look. It's actually really good, and there are some amazing videos, well filmed, with these ideas on how it works. You can actually see people doing it, and it's a lot more than cutting pretty pictures and gluing them. It's about manifesting here in your brain, and then I was just touching my temples, and I feel the brain is all over. The whole body has cells, and these cells have memory. So if we keep attaching pain and negativity to our goals, we're not going to get there. So we have to clear. So sometimes we need therapy to clear up this. So I hope that you guys found this episode useful for you. Maybe you want to share it with a friend and you want to leave a good message, maybe ask questions. Well, thank you so much, Debbi, for being with us. Thank you to all for being here.
Well, thank you for asking wonderful questions. It's fun to share through the lens of faith as well.
Thank you. Well, you guys, I'll see you all then next week. Thank you for being with us. Take care. Bye. You've listened to Create. with Franz Sydney.